First item on the agenda is the minutes on my last regular meeting. Had a chance to review them tonight. Get a chance to review between now and the regular meeting. And find any errors or corrections, please pass those on to Kelly so she can get them updated prior to the meeting. Are there any comments related to the meeting minutes? If not, we'll move on to the second item, which is Chip Stone from Action Incorporated. My understanding is Chip called and canceled and he will not be here tonight. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Chip didn't show up. Third item on the agenda is just an update, it's a review of the Planning Commission review. Bobby and Josh both have served on the committee along with Ida Winthrop and Rush Yaney, Mary Cook, and myself. I didn't make the last meeting, but we have had 3 meetings. I think there was a lot accomplished, a lot of things that is recommended, and I'd just like to give you an update on what that is. The whole idea was to have all the meetings, 3 separate meetings, an hour and a half each, and get everything accomplished. Any recommendations or changes made in that amount of time. I think that did happen. I think there's other things that they would like to entertain, but for now, I'd like to get an update as to what was discussed and the possibilities are out there, and just get everybody on the same page and see how we want to proceed, or if we want to proceed with it.
In the 3-month meeting since last month's Board of Commissioners meeting, the committee has agreed in principle on several things which we believe would make the process simpler and more effective to make land use decisions. We have not yet considered written policy, but that's simply because it takes time to put things in writing that we do agree on. We have scheduled a meeting for this Friday morning to review policy that I put into text, and the committee will consider. The proposals center around the belief that not all items require review by the Planning Commission. Items should be given an appropriate level of attention from the right people. Some of the items are very simple and have limited impact on the community, and those items we believe could go directly to the Board of Commissioners in some cases. In order to determine which cases could go directly before the Board of Commissioners, it will be reviewed initially by the Planning Administrator, Board of Commissioners Chairman, the Chairman of the Board of Commissioners, the District Commissioner involved in the case, and the Planning Commission Chairman.
Can I hold you up right now?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
I think that was commonly referred to as an oversight committee.
We standardized the name of that as a review.
Okay, so a review committee, so nothing could just automatically be bypassed from straight to the administrator to the Board of Commissioners. There would be an overview committee.
And they would, a review committee, and they would determine whether or not the case required further scrutiny by the Planning Commission or could go directly to the Board of Commissioners for consideration. And the second item that
Go ahead and state that either one of the 4
yeah.
have fallen.
Yeah.
So if one person doesn't, of the 4 doesn't agree, it can automatically go down.
Yeah.
So the district commission or the chairman or depends on the judge, it just goes on.
The review committee, if that's what we're going to call it, if you don't mind,
Right.
was suggested that that review committee consists of, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but basically the same review committee as a hardship case. In the event of a hardship case, it was a process that one had to go through that was probably at least 60 days long. Well, in the event of a hardship, you can't wait 60 days if you really need to move in a home because your house burned down. In 60 days, you almost have your house built back. So that was changed. I think what was suggested was, and if it's a review committee, as a technical term, the review committee consists of the chairman of the Board of Commissioners, or in their absence, the vice chair, the chairman of the Planning Commission, or in their absence, the vice chair, and the district commissioner from the district that was affected by the decision at hand. So these 3 individuals, plus the planning administrator, were looked at. If any of these individuals decided that this was something that shouldn't go directly to the Board of Commissioners, then any dissenting vote would send it through the whole process and the Planning Commission. that's the way I understood it, and I didn't attend the last meeting, so that's where it was when I left.
That's correct, and that's the understanding currently. I didn't know how much detail you wanted to go in here, but
To avoid speculation,
yeah.
I think that we need to make sure that that's real clear as what's intended.
It's important to understand a major difference between the hardship procedure and this procedure. In the case of a hardship, that hardship committee hears the case and makes a decision right there. This review committee simply decides which procedure is used, whether a case goes to the planning commission and then the board of commissioners, or whether it goes directly to the board of commissioners for consideration. So they're not a decision-making body, except that they'll decide which way it goes.
And I guess to back up even a little bit further, Josh, the whole idea behind reviewing this situation is a lot of things have changed since the planning commission come into effect. First of all, it was a nine-body member body that did the entire review, where there was initially no planning administrator, there was no one who did this all the time, who knew the ins and outs. I think now, as it currently stands, a lot of that work is done up front, you know, and a lot of it is takes very little review, and not all of it, but a good bit of it. So a person today, if they want to go before, to have a zoning change, it made perfectly good sense, and there's nothing by law that says they have to go before planning commission. But if it made perfectly good sense, there's no sense in them having to take 60 days to go through that process. There could be, we feel like there could be a more streamlined process, and this is sort of how this thing got started. So again, just to give you a bit of an insight as to the motive behind this, and that's sort of where it's coming from.
Which brings me to the second item that the committee has, in principle, agreed on, and that is that we ask the planning commissioners to do quite a lot. They consider everything from rezones, conditional uses, variances, major subdivision plats, major commercial development plats, and also text amendments, which are policy changes. And that's a lot to ask of a volunteer member of the community. And so similarly, that we've identified that there are some items that are simple enough to go directly to the Board of Commissioners. There are also some items that are very technical and very complex and may require a different procedure themselves. And so the other item that the committee has agreed on is to break up the different types of decisions that have completely different sets of considerations to make. So that, some of these types of land use decisions can be lumped together. Rezones, conditional uses, and variances are very similar. They all require a knowledge of the zoning ordinance, but none of the other documents. Residential subdivisions, major commercial developments are both very complex and require a knowledge of a completely different set of considerations, legal parameters, and regulations. So we have decided that it's best to break up those different types of procedures and apply an appropriate level of attention and the right people, get the right people involved. And we've agreed on the details, but again, I got to put that in writing before we bring it to you, and the committee has to agree on it before I go into any more detail about how we're going to break that up. Are there any questions? Did I make that clear as mud?
I think it's pretty clear to me. Of course, I participated in it, didn't get the last part, but I think it's pretty clear. Right?
Are we talking about doing away with the planning and zoning board?
No.
No. Well, they don't have any decisions to make, the way I understand it. So why would you have one? Maybe I missed something.
I think that they really, if you think about it, they don't have decisions to make now. They don't take official action on anything. They make a recommendation.
Well, I understand that, but you're taking one layer of the people representing me or whoever away from making a decision. In other words, he makes a decision and you go.
Well, he makes a decision.
He's not the one that makes decisions for it, make the
Now,
decision.
who is it for?
The district commissioner, chairman, Board of
Well, I
Commissioners.
understand that, yeah, I understand that, but you're still taking away one layer from
Well,
representing the
it's just
citizen.
for minor things, what it amounts to, it's not for major things. Sometimes if it's over two parcels of land, it's still going to land.
Well, but nobody else does that other than Ash in the state of Georgia.
Okay,
There will be a role for the planning commission in the proposal that we put together.
well, you know, I
It's
guess
just not the same.
one of the things too that it sort of jumps out at you, if you look at 100%, if you look at all of the zoning decisions that were made by the planning commission, or recommendations that were made by the planning commission over the past 2 years, 100% of those were unanimous.
Yeah, I understand that, but we know about that, but.
Well, then, you know, that could say a lot of things, but one thing it sort of says is that, you know, some of them probably were a no-brainer. You know, if people had to sit back for 60 days, 2 months, you know, sitting on a decision, it's really, you know, something you really don't have to think a whole lot about. I mean, that's what this is about. It's not about doing away with something, but it is about making it more efficient, making it more practical for those who have to use it. And any one of those 4 people that we talked about on this review committee can make it go through the whole process. You know, and I would submit to you that any one of those 4 people, or all of those 4 people, are heavily engaged in that decision. I can't tell you that 100% of all of our planning commission members historically have been engaged in those decisions. You know?
Well, and I think the 4 people you're talking about include Barry Cook. And Barry Cook doesn't live in
It
the
does not
county,
include
but
Barry.
they still need to make decisions for what I do in this
The
county.
4 people I'm talking about does not include Mary.
Okay, but she's been on this committee.
She is a former administrator, and I think
agree with that,
expect.
but she doesn't live in the county anymore, so she shouldn't be making decisions.
She didn't make any decisions. No one made a decision. The decision we're talking about is from a review committee that does not include Mary Cook. That includes the chairman of the board of commissioners or the vice chair if he's not available, the planning commission chairman or the vice chair of that commission if he's not available, the district commissioner of that district that's being represented or being making a request, or their designee if they're not available. They can just, you know, they can say another chairperson could, another board member could fill in their position, sure, if they weren't there. These are all people that should represent, you know, be real close to that situation. I think all of those are engaged, and none of them are anybody other than the people that know that really, really close. And any one of those can say, look, I'm having reservations, I'm against it, put this before the whole planning commission, let them make a review. You know, this is certainly not to get those things that are important on through the system. It's for those things that really, I mean, we've got a lot of them out there, right, and you know it, that were zoned improperly, not because anybody did anything wrong, it's because they were, their current use or their existing use at the time was something other than probably what that zoning designation said it should be. So it was given that designation. And when people come back and say, well, listen, I want to change that to what it really should be, it shouldn't go through a 60-day process.
What our real deal is, this whole book was written by an unqualified person, and that's where our real problem is. They a lot of things need to be corrected.
Well, you know, I'm not going to get into whether,
And I don't think that.
you know, I think that there's some things that,
Throw that out.
I think that there's things that need to be looked at from time to time to make the system more efficient, more user-friendly for the citizens, and as long as it don't compromise the integrity of the decision, then why not consider it? You know, but it's not to do away with the planning commission. I know that's been said. It's just not the case. It never was the intention and will not be the intention. I personally think that the things that were brought forth, at least that I heard of, and the reports that I heard tonight, are valuable. I think they're allowed to make it efficient, but without compromise to the integrity of the system. Any comments?
I got something. I want to ask you Stourdevant.
Sure.
Okay, you said that wouldn't we, the only one in the state of Georgia do it. What is your main objective? Do you oppose to the way?
No, listen here.
Hear you out.
I need to point this out.
Okay.
My main objective is our creek buffers and our river buffers. They're just way out of line. Now, I don't mind having a buffer. We need to protect our creeks and rivers and whatever.
All right, I'll wait to cut you off right there. If you want to talk about the pre-buffer and real buffer, that's the next item on the agenda. We can get there then. If you want to.
Is there something else you want to ask me?
I just
pertaining
want to
this?
know, you know, if you're opposed to what we're doing, what, you know.
No, I do not oppose to having the set of to go back. I do not oppose to that.
And based on what you
But
heard
they
tonight,
need to be workable. And you know that.
That's,
based on what you heard tonight, Roddy, do you
That's what-
disagree that we're trying to make them more workable versus less workable?
yeah, that's what I was.
Well, yeah, but we got a long way to go.
Well, it's like eating an elephant. You just gotta take a bite of the ear and keep chewing, you know? And we eat our share of elephants.
That's like a cat.
All right. Is there any other questions, relevant questions to the items on the agenda currently? On the table? Josh, I'm sorry, you have more to talk about?
I'm good, as long as everybody's, feels like they know what we talked about.
Well, I still got one more question, Billy.
Okay.
Yeah, I know we've been talking about if things were zoned wrong, you know, with this, where you're proposing, would they just be able to go to this committee?
Let me give you an example there.
Okay.
I think one of the things that really sort of stuck, and it's happened from time to time, but one of the things that sort of really stuck with us is Ronald Jones. He come in here, he had a business, he ran a business for a long period of time, he left that business, but when his business went through the plan and zoning process, it was designated as R1. He continued to run that business until he stopped that business, and he moved his business elsewhere. Then he wanted to rent his business to someone else to get, to use that business, use that as a business. But yet it was designated as R1. Well, his grandfather clause had gone away, if you remember correctly. And now all of a sudden he's got to spend money and go back through this process. Well, I don't think there's anyone here who disagrees that Mr. Jones should have done anything other than been able to allow business there. In this scenario that Josh just presented, I believe, in the absence of one of those people on that review committee throwing up their hand and say it needs to go before the whole planning commission, Mr. Jones wouldn't have had to wait 60 days to allow someone to go into his business.
So if you go back to the map or something, zoned incorrectly, then again, this committee will be able to.
That is the intent, to make it more, that's just one of many situations we've encountered, planning commission has encountered, that really probably didn't need to happen. You know, so that's the intent of what we're trying to do.
Let me give another example. When I restructured Oglethorpe Fire Department, the man gave us a lot, they couldn't have it. And it was on R1, we had it on go. And so we had to go through a 60-day process when it was a cut and dry deal. And nobody was opposed to it. So that's just a shortcut we go through.
It's a more efficient measure. Shortcut just doesn't sound right.
Because I've been through something,
Well,
it wouldn't be.
In properties like that where it's cut and dried, you don't have to go through this 60-day process.
But even if it doesn't make complete sense, it's got to make complete sense to four individuals who are very close to it. Otherwise, they can raise their hand and say, I don't want to vote for it, it's going for the whole process.
It makes sense to me, I just want to hear what the reason.